Spooky Tuesday.
You listen to her podcast.
Wait, what?
Hey guys, welcome back to Spooky Tuesday, a weekly podcast where we're breaking down all of our favorite slashers, thrillers, monster movies, and black comedies on the new scariest day of the week. I'm Sydney Thompson.
I'm Monica Height.
And I'm Chelsea Duff.
And this week we're doing something fresh, something new, something hot off the presses. It's Bodies, Bodies, Bodies 2022. And we all just saw it this weekend. I had a blast. And it's very Gen Z.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I saw it. I made some friends go see it with me. I had a great time. Some of the boys didn't get it as much as the girls. I feel like this movie's a little bit for the girls. But you saw it
It
with
might
a boy.
be for the girls. At first I saw it with Claire from Sunday Scaries and also with Abby from Horror in Real Life, two amazing horror platforms that you should follow on Instagram. And we had a really good time seeing it on Friday. But something about the movie, I wanted to see it with Adam because he really wanted to see it, but our scheduling didn't work out. So I was like, well, I'm not going to see it twice. I'm not going to spend my whole day on Sunday doing horror things before the pod. I'm going to have my own life. And then I watched
Dedicate your
the movie
whole weekend to the movie.
I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. And then I watched it on Friday and I was like, JK, I will do whatever I can to see it again with Adam before, because there's something about it that I was like, Adam needs to see it. You know what I mean? And he really, really liked it. We had so much fucking fun. So some boys love it, I would say.
When I went to the movie theaters, I was in line for the concessions to get a little snack, and an adorable 6-year-old tried to convince me to not go see Bodies, 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 and instead go with him and his mom and dad to go see the Minions.
He was right. Here's the thing. You should have done that.
Here's the thing. I should have, because I didn't like this movie.
Oh no! So you really should have.
I should have. Like, I was mad that I paid money to see this. Like, I think I maybe would have liked it on streaming when I was like, whatever. But
lower stakes.
I did not have a good time.
No.
Damn, I was really
During
hoping
this.
that you would like it. I was hoping
did
you'd
not.
like it, but I could never fucking tell with you, bitch.
Yeah. And you were texting us a lot during the movie. And so I was
like,
okay,
that's
she's
a
not
bad
sucked in.
sign.
Yeah, I was like, I cannot believe I wasted my afternoon doing this.
No.
Like,
No.
I was so mad.
Oh. Well,
Alas.
for all of Sydney's hate, I loved it just as much. But here we are. Here, before we get into it, let me tell you what the plot synopsis is on IMDb. This is what it says. When a group of rich 20-somethings plan a hurricane party at a remote family mansion, a party game turns deadly in this fresh and funny look at backstabbing, fake friends, and one party game gone really very wrong. And I said that wrong, and I literally added 2 words that weren't in that description, but I won't tell you which ones.
That's a mystery for you to figure out.
That's a little mystery for you.
Is it really very?
Yeah, it was the really very, it said very, very. I just feeling really very excited about this episode, because even if you hated it, Sydney, there's so many funny things to talk about for us in particular, because this is a podcast forward
Yes.
movie.
My friend 100% turned and looked over at me as soon as I started making podcast jokes. So
It was brutal.
Here's the thing. It had some like funny lines, but it didn't. The funny lines didn't make up for how much I did not like this movie.
okay. Even though they were putting astrology stuff in there, targeting you.
Here's the thing. That was the funniest. That's the only time my movie theater laughed. The only time was he has a Libra moon. The only time. And it was one other person besides me laughing.
Oh my God.
Okay,
I feel
tragic.
like the theater experience is like a huge part of it for this one because I saw opening night on Friday night in LA, and this is like a very it's a New York movie for sure because that's like it takes place on the East Coast. I don't know where on the East Coast, but I don't fucking know where it was. But I know that it's giving well, I think they all went to school in New York because they were making all those fucking mean jokes about NYU, and I thought it was hilarious.
It's probably set in like Connecticut or something like that. That's where all the
Yeah.
rich people live.
But anyway, I loved like first thoughts coming into this movie is Amandla is like so fucking hot. Sorry. But that was my first thought coming into this movie is like, damn, absolutely damn. This cast, I really loved the cast of this movie. I think that everybody was like very cute and very well cast for this, and they like had comedy chops that I wasn't expecting. I mean, obviously I expected comedy from Pete, but like there's a lot of other people coming in hot and heavy here. And it was like Rachel Sennott, I am so fucking obsessed with her after this.
Have you seen her in anything else?
No, I haven't seen Shiva Baby, which is
I
one
haven't
of
seen
her
it
like
yet
big
either.
things that she's done.
Mm-hmm.
And I might watch it tonight. Like I follow her on Instagram. I have literally no idea why because I've never seen her in anything, but I've been following her for a long time. That's like part of the reason I like found out about this movie. I follow A24 too, but I saw her post about it and I was like, who is this again? I have no idea. But here she
She's a
is
really
in
funny
my
web
life.
series. She's a really funny web series with Iowa Jebri, who is on like Big Mouth and writes on like What We Do in the Shadows and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think it ended a couple of years ago, but they have
She has
a cute little web series.
Twitter too.
Mhm.
That's
Yep.
how I know who she is. Was I just followed her on Twitter?
Look, she's
'cause
just
she was-
an icon online.
yeah, she was chronically online.
Chronically
And, oh boy,
online.
can you tell by this movie? And
Yeah.
that infuriated me quite
I
frankly.
would say those are the vibes of the movie is chronically
Oh.
online.
Chronically
Chronically
online.
online. I just think it's such a funny like the movie isn't like it's a horror movie. Yes,
Mhm.
it is. It is.
Is it?
But it's a satire. That's what it really is. It's like a satire on like the online community, like the Gen Z, like slash like sort of millennials too, but mostly Gen Z, like online culture. Like that's what it's making fun of. Like I never felt scared the entire movie. There's some moments where I felt anxious for sure. But like mostly I was laughing my fucking ass off the entire time because like they talk about some like intense topics throughout the film, but the way that it is written, the way that it is performed, it's all tongue-in-cheek, and I was laughing my ass off the entire time. Like I think that it's rare when a trailer for a film is so good and then the moments come in the film and I don't know, for me watching the moments from the trailer in the film, they came in such an unexpected way, where like it wasn't like a giveaway for all the good jokes, like it was like a callback for me, and it was also just like, I don't know, within the context it was even funnier. Like, oh god, I'm sorry that you didn't love it, Sydney, but I laughed so hard. I was like crying in the theater both times I saw it.
Yeah, I found it so annoying, like way more obnoxious than funny. Like, and I was just like, this is annoying. And I also read like somewhere that they improvised a lot of the conversations.
Well, I read an
makes
interview and the director was saying
even
she
more
would just like let the camera run and like let them keep going and like get
Yeah.
more natural like reaction shots and stuff that way.
Which it's just, I don't know. I'm not Gen Z, and I know people talk like that a lot, but
Mhm.
do they fucking talk like that to each other all the fucking time?
Just always
I think it's
on.
supposed to be like hyperbolic, like that's the joke.
But it's not funny. It's just obnoxious.
Yes, it is, baby. It's subjective, honey. It's subjective, baby.
I literally
you?
almost, if we weren't doing this, I would have left like halfway through. I just like did, like, it was so grating on me that I was just like on my phone, like was like going to pee. Like I could not. This movie
Was
like made
it-
my skin crawl in a bad way.
Was it because it was like so discoursey? Like can you pinpoint like what it was that bothered you so much?
Like it was the way they were talking. I hated Pete Davidson's acting. Like like
so
Well,
funny.
that's because he's just being
I
Pete David. He's not
loved it.
acting.
I
Yeah,
know.
he's just chilling.
I know, but it was like painfully obvious that this was like almost a 30-year-old man trying to be a teenager. Know what I mean? Like it wasn't like Lee Pace was the only savior in this movie. And that is because he's 6'5".
It's not just
Lee
because
Pace
he was
is
6'5". It's
6'5".
also because he's handsome and charming.
I mean, yes, and apparently he's bisexual.
Yeah, yes, he is queen. Actually, I'm not sure if that's the label that he uses, but I'm pretty sure it's the label that he uses.
But there was like one point where Pete and Lee Pace were like standing close to each other, and you could tell that Lee Pace was a little bit taller than Pete, and Pete
Oh,
is
yeah.
6'4". And the entire time I was like, kiss.
That's
No, you
exactly
want
what
to.
I said, Sydney. Oh
And then
my
they
god!
did it,
On
and then
Friday,
maybe that's why after that I was like, I fucking
Oh.
hate this movie. But I
Dude,
just
no,
the
I totally
dialogue,
feel you.
the everything.
well, I'm sorry that you hated it, but I'm gonna love it this whole time, so we can fight later. But like as far as like the whole plot of this movie, it's really fueled by Pete Davidson's character's insecurities, like all of the David, that's his character's name. David's insecurities like create all of the issues in this movie. Honestly, they really do. And the thing that's so frustrating is that like they're at David's house. He has this fucking crazy psychotic mansion, like a fucking insane mansion. And he's got the most beautiful girlfriend in the world. That's Emma, or that's her name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Emma, played by Chasey Wonders. She's so beautiful. And he's just like, I don't understand why he's so threatened by Greg, because Greg, played by Lee Pace, is not trying to get at his life. He is just a man who's at his house, who's fucking Pete Davidson's friend, not Pete Davidson's girlfriend, but he's so mad that he's so hot. And it must be because he loves him as well. You know, he's
it's
like, I feel so uncomfortable that I'm so attracted to Lee Pace, and I am now questioning my sexuality, and I have to be a big old bitch because of it.
I think it's literally just because Greg is an inch taller than him.
He can't handle it. He's like, I'm the tallest boy. No one's taller than
he's like, I'm
6'4" besides
6'4".
Yao Ming.
I'm used to being the tallest guy in the room. I think probably he's also with this friend group used to being the only guy around and having that
Well,
like
that's not true because there's Max. Max is usually around. I thought
who
that
punched him in the
too.
face last night though. You know what I mean?
know,
So clearly
but
there's
that was the
tension there.
first time that they've had like that beef, you know? Like I thought
Yes.
of that too, but I think that he's just feels insecure because Lee Pace, Greg, is like hotter, richer, cooler than him. Well, not richer, but like
Not richer.
he's like older.
He's a vet.
I think it's because it's
assistant.
not to get into like blah 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 alpha beta male shit, because who gives a fuck, unless you're talking about the omega verse, in which case you have my attention. But I think that it is literally just because he thinks of himself as the alpha male. And so while Max is also a male who presumably is around, even though he is only in this movie for 0.5 seconds, it's because he thinks of himself as like the guy, and like to have this other man who is like legitimately a threat on those fronts, like you were saying, whether or not Greg is doing the toxic masculinity of it all, which he clearly is not, with like his light mask and he's just like laying down. And I feel like he would wear a kimono, you know what I mean? And be like in touch with his feminine side, quote unquote, whatever. Pete Davidson is just like perceiving him as like a threat to his own perceived masculinity.
It's because David's insecure. Pete is insecure. His character is super insecure. He like can't be confronted with another tall boy. He has to be the hottest man around. And I'm like,
it's literally just that 1 inch. I really think so.
I really think that's a big part of it. I really agree with you.
That moment where they go face to face and Lee Pace is just like towering over him a little bit. Like I think that is just the thesis point of that character.
Oh, totally. I was sitting between Abby and Claire, and I was putting my hands together, like kiss, kiss.
Yeah.
No one else in the group felt that way, but I felt that way. And I'm really glad to hear y'all felt that way too.
Of course we
Um,
felt that way.
I know. I knew that you would. And so thank God for you. That's why we're doing this podcast together.
I will say, the second that the movie opened and it was two girls kissing for a long time, I was like, okay, yeah, it's good that we're doing this. It's right that we're doing this movie.
Oh,
I
yeah.
liked that. I hated the up close shot though. I was like, they kiss really weird.
It was not a great looking kiss, and I think kind of that was the point, because it was like this weird charged it went on so long, and then she grabs her pussy, and then she's like, I love you, you don't have to say it back, and then it cuts to them like immediately in the car on their phones, like doing a little phone break, you know what I mean? Like, it creates this sort of romantic, sort of like sexual lusty vibe, and then immediately destroys it, and like completely disconnected from each other.
Well, I think it's like this whole thing is just a roast of Gen Z. It really is. It's just like a fucking brutal roast. So it's just like, I mean, that's kind of how it is. That's kind of how, I mean, I have a boyfriend. His name is Adam. You've seen him many, many times. And like we'll have some times where we're like really tuned in, and then we're on our fucking phones for hours and hours, because that's like what the culture is these days, you know?
Well, sure. I think it's very normal to take a phone break. I just think like the choice to show it in that way was a statement and tone setting. You know what I
Oh
mean?
no, totally. No, I agree. I agree. It's all just a brilliant satire of the realities of being a youth in this age right now. Like it's a really weird time because you're being pulled in so many different directions. You have like this addiction to your cell phone, this like need to be online and like to be a part of the culture online and that sort of a thing. And like I feel like that's like what they're really trying to put across, and it's making fun of it. Like, you know, it's part of it's mean because like they're making fun of like, oh, being triggered, gaslighting, all of that stuff. And I like enjoy like a lot of those terms, like some of those things that we've learned from the internet are valuable tools to like quantify and qualify like what we're going through. But it also is just like making fun of all of these buzzwords that
Yeah.
people use all the time, like way too much at the same time. So I don't know. I liked it.
I read a couple different articles. I read a New York Times article. I read, I read an Elle article, and I read a Vanity Fair article where they were like, a bunch of them had like different quotes and interviews with the stars and the people behind the scenes as well. And there were a lot of takes that I didn't like super buy into necessarily, where they were like, social media is the villain, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know. I think it's really just like toxic friendships are the villain. And like social media has kind of contributed to part of this, where it's like you might have a friend group that's about like, oh, we take and post pictures together so that people can see what good friends we are, but we're not actually good friends to each other. But I just think like these are all issues that have already existed and are not new. You know what I mean? They might present in a different way now. Social media, I think, really comes through with like the buzzwords, because it really gave us access to these sort of like academic and actually useful and psychological terms and knowledge people would not necessarily have been familiar with otherwise.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
like it makes sense to point to that and say like that is a problem, because it is having people like engage with that language without really appreciating the weight of it.
Totally.
But also
I feel like people overdiagnose a little bit
Yeah.
these days sometimes, but then also like some people now have the terms to use to like describe what the fuck is going on in their lives when they wouldn't have before. So, you know, it's always a balance.
Yeah, I just I don't know. I don't really feel like it was anti-Gen Z or like a takedown of Gen Z or social media or whatever. I kind of felt like that is dumb actually. And it's really just about because they're like, what would Gen Z do if they lost access to social media? And it's like, okay, but this is the same premise as any horror movie where the power goes out, you know what I mean? Like they're not doing anything particularly dumb because they're Gen Z. They're doing things that are dumb because they all secretly hate each other, and that has existed within friendships at any age
That
in
can
the
happen, yeah,
lifespan and at any
literally. I
point in
mean,
history. Jesus
totally,
had
I
friends who
totally
betrayed him
agree.
because they were toxic. So
So true.
going back to the
Caesar.
early days.
Y'all remember Caesar?
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
We should all just stab Caesar.
I'll just stab
Exactly.
Caesar. A concept that I want to talk about just here at the beginning
Mhm.
is the concept of the hurricane party and the fact that I would like to have one.
I've had those before.
I
Yeah,
watched this
I've had those.
movie and I
Yeah.
have seen what happens in this movie and it goes bad. That sounds so fucking fun. Also, I like demand to play Bodies, 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 the game immediately.
You've never played Mafia before?
I've played it, but it's been like, since high
Mm.
school.
I've never played it in like a people roaming around the house with the lights out kind of way, I don't think, but I played like the basic version, you know.
I mean, like drunk in a house sounds like
A little fucked up, yeah.
like an ideally horrifying way to do it. I think that the house should have as few staircases as possible.
Maybe.
I think maybe like a one story or like out on like a flat plane.
Sure.
Right.
But
Like you have to
I
stay on
love the
this floor
concept.
only.
Yes.
I did think it was really fun when they started playing Bodies, 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 and the lights went out the various way that they were like lighting scenes and like playing with that. One of the boys that I went with was being a real hater, and his main complaint about this movie was that it was too dark, and he couldn't see anything. But I thought the
We're
way
in
that
a
they
movie
like,
theater.
I know. Well, they didn't turn all the lights out on the end, like the lights that what light the walkway. I think they could have made it darker in theory, but I felt like I saw everything just fine. Maybe his eyes are sad and sensitive. But I loved how Rachel Sennott was wearing the necklaces. I liked how
Yes.
B was like crawling around with her phone. I thought that they like had a lot of fun with what they were showing you and what you could see and what you couldn't see in a way that worked for me.
No, I really liked that too. I thought it was very visually stimulating. I also loved how they like in very like hard to view ways like unfolded the like plan like the floor plan of the house. Like you could never like really figure it out. They do a good job of like setting up clues that are going to be important later as well. Like, you know, um that the car is going to be important because
Yes, as soon as
they
she
leave
didn't.
the
Mhm.
B leaves the light open. The window is going to be important. The window of the car is going to be important because like Sophie's character or Amandla Sternberg's
Amandla?
character. I thought it was Amandla.
It's not.
Amandla?
It's
What is it?
Amandla. I
It's Amandla?
checked. Yeah, it's Amandla.
Oh, I had no idea. That's awesome. It's great.
And I'm not sure what pronouns they use these days, but definitely at some point, Amandla has talked about being non-binary and using they them pronouns, but they don't have pronouns on
man.
their Instagram right now. So I'm not
Well,
sure, but that's the latest info
okay,
I have.
I'll use they them for Amandla. I've really
Gotta
thought there was
rewrite the
another
brain.
A in their name this entire time.
That's like when I was
Um,
a child and I thought McGonagall's name was McGonagall, and I just inserted a whole extra syllable in there.
I
Even reading the
thought
books, it
Hagrid's
felt right
name
to
was
me.
Haggard, and I was very sure that it was Haggard, and I was like saying that out loud like all the time. So we
Oh,
live
you know
we
Haggard,
learn.
yeah.
Okay, I just Googled it and it says that she did come out as non-binary, but uses she, her, and they, them pronouns.
Cool, tight.
Amazing. Well, Amandla, I'm sorry that I said your name wrong. But I love their character in this movie because they are so conniving. They really are. They've been through a lot. They've been through so much, but they have so many ulterior motives throughout this entire movie. It's really hard to ever pin down what's going on with them because, like, they set Sophie up at the very beginning to be like so in love with B, and B is like the one who is holding back. But then we find out throughout that, like, Sophie's like had an affair with Jordan in the last week, which is so crazy. And
Potentially,
like there's
literally the day before, even.
yeah, like literally, and they're so untrustworthy in that way. And then also like they are there with a motive 100%. Like they told no one that they were showing up. They're completely just like I don't know, ghosting. I it's the opposite of ghosting. They arrive without
They
saying
had
anything
previously ghosted.
instead of
Yeah.
leaving without saying anything.
Ghosts pop up without warning. That's still ghost shit.
Exactly. It's still some ghost energy. There's some specter shit going on right now.
What do you think the motive is, though?
Know what the motive is? The motive is that Sophie got cut off from their
Oh, yeah.
family because they went to rehab. They had a really severe drug issue and went to rehab and got cut off from their trust fund. And they're there to get David to talk to their parents
And be like,
to
it's true.
get their to
It's so true.
reinstate their trust fund.
You're right.
That's
You're right. You're right.
100% what it is. Because like love them so much, love Sophie so much, but like they're not subtle. They're not
Yeah.
subtle at all. They're finally having a conversation with Pete or with David. God, it's so confusing that his name is
Because he
David
really is just
when he's
presenting
Pete
as Pete.
Davidson. He's just
Oh,
Pete
that too.
Davidson.
Sure.
Yeah, Pete Davidson, named David in the film.
Pete David parentheses son.
I mean, I see what you're saying, Sydney, because we know how old he is, but I think he looks whatever fucking age, especially now that he's like lanced off all of his tattoos. I'm sure he was wearing some makeup as well. But it was just so clear that he actually really has been doing that thing where he's been getting them all removed, which I still don't really get, but whatever. But I really loved him in this movie because I think he's funny, just in general. And I think he was very much the type of funny that he can be in this movie. And it was hilarious. And I think he played the like insecure dude really well. And I loved like all the shit where he was like, I feel like I look like I fuck, you know what I mean? And how he was trying to be like with his black eye from Max. He was like, yeah, like you'd see me coming out of a 7-Eleven and you'd be like, oh yeah, fuck.
Which again is just him
so
playing
stupid.
himself.
No, yeah.
Well, he
100%.
improvised that line.
That's what he does.
He made
That's
that
what
up.
he does. He's a comedian. You know what I mean? Like he's just there to be Pete Davidson comedian. And that's what I expected. And so he hit the nail on the head for me. And I also fucking like he was such a dick. He was such a fucking piece of shit. That and he's Pete Davidson. He is so his name is on everyone's lips right now, especially because Kim and him broke up literally like the week that this came out.
You mean
like,
the
fact
week
that he
that
dies?
Chloe have a baby?
Yeah.
I saw those tweets. It's like
this isn't
Kim's
a
on her
Kardashian.
BS. Yeah. Well, anyway.
But like, I love that he died first.
I was so thrilled when he died.
I love that he died first because it's just like I didn't want like I would have loved to have more of his jokes or whatever, but it's just like perfect. And the way that the movie ends up turning out, like it's just so perfect for me. For me, it was beautiful. Oh God, it was so fucking funny. I was like the second that there was a sword and he left the sword outside, I was like, why are you leaving the sword outside? You just made a big deal about how it's a fancy sword. Don't leave it outside. I was like, someone's gonna fall on it or something like that. And then we'll get there.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job with setup in general. Like the sword they introduced, the top of the staircase they introduced, the light on in the car immediately. Yeah, the glass table. The light on in the car especially. I like turned to my friend and I was like, the car battery, because obviously we knew we were watching a horror movie. And I was like, oh no, they're going to get reined in. Like it was clear, but in a way that I thought worked, where you're like clocking it and waiting for it to come back. Chekhov's car light.
I think they did a really good job of like casting suspicion on a lot of people. Like with B going back to the car on her own, and then Sophie just like being kind of sketchy, and like there's a point when they're like coming into the house and Sophie like is looking at B and looking like with this really intense face, and then her face changed and she's smiling and she's like, we're gonna have so much fun, you know. It's like you're like not trusting Sophie's vibe. And then I think the game of bodies does a great job of like making everybody else seem suspect, except for Alice. Like I never expected Alice to be the one who was doing it, because she's just kind of like a fair weather girly no matter what. Like no matter what's going on, she will just adapt to the situation, say what she thinks is the right thing to say. So you never know like what she actually feels until, you know, she accidentally spills the beans because she's coked out.
That's so funny though, because the original script was written by Kristen, I don't know if I'm saying this right, Kristen Rupenian, who wrote the cat person story for the New Yorker, if you remember when that was like a phenomenon.
No
and the script has changed a whole bunch since then, and there's like, it's now like a story by Kristen Rupenian credit, and a new screenwriter who did the majority of what it looks like now. But in the original, Alice was the killer. And I don't know like how much that Alice is like at all similar to this Alice that we ended up having, but that was one of the articles that I read said.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's interesting that you like picked her to be like, not her though.
Well, I just like, I mean, in the movie that
No, it's totally different.
like,
Yeah.
it's totally different. She's just too all over the place. She's really have.
She's funny. I thought she was really funny.
Her character had me absolutely like, I didn't scream from fear one time in this movie, but I did scream in the movie theater, and it was because of her. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. And like, God, I just like shouts out to the Grove AMC like 7:15 showing of this film last Friday night, because like it was a fucking great crowd. The vibes were right.
Yeah, I think like we've been saying, there's like a ton of buzzwords, but I do think Alice got all of the like iconic lines for the most part. The Libra Moon discourse was Alice. The I'm an ally discourse was Alice. The I have body dysmorphia was Alice.
The body dysmorphia part.
She's the best part of the movie, hands
funny.
down.
She is the movie. She is incredible.
Her line delivery, honestly, of just David, like that alone, I don't know, it does something for me. It works for me.
She was just like perfectly fucked up throughout the whole thing, and just fucking shit up the entire time. Like, I can't believe that she revealed to everyone. She's like, yeah, you guys don't have sex anymore. That's so sad. Like, poor Emma and David. Like, no one needs to know that, honey. Alice, keep your mouth fucking shut. No amount of coke should reveal that secret.
I do want Sydney's take on the Libra Moon stuff though. Would you say that would make a man of Lee Pace's caliber particularly trustworthy when it comes to if he's a murderer or not?
Here's the thing, Libra moons, most Libra placements are hot. So that's
sure. Sydney and I have our Libra Venuses, where, I mean, speaks for itself.
Here's the thing, my Libra Venus is the bane of my existence, and I hate it every single day, and I cannot believe.
But what about mine, Sydney?
I don't know. How do you feel about it? That's how I feel about mine.
I can see how it would be similarly the bane of my existence. Anyway, His Libra moon. Sorry, back to the subject at hand. It makes him hot, but what else does it make him?
I feel like a Libra, depending on the reasons why they're murdering, would weigh out like the pros and cons and be like, you know what, deserved, and do it. So
they're like the scales, they're the justice, right, Libra?
yes.
So like if they think Pete Davidson deserved it, but I think in that case Greg wouldn't have. I didn't really suspect Greg.
He's just stupid. Yeah.
He's just big.
Oh my God, he's just big and beautiful. But I have never, I laughed so many times, but I laughed so hard when they were looking for Greg and they see him in the gym and he's wearing the light mask and everyone's like, what the fuck is going on? And Alice is like, that's his light mask. He has seasonal depression.
He just seemed gentle to me. But they were like, he's a vet. He was in Iraq or maybe Afghanistan. I don't know.
And then she was like, he was a veterinarian assistant.
He's not even a veterinarian. He's a veterinarian assistant. The kindest man on this earth. And he's like, they do a really good job of like subtly setting up that he like does like meditational things like that. Like before the like potential murder mystery thing is even happening. Like B is walking through the house and sees him meditating. So then when you see him in the gym, like laying down with the mask on, for me, it didn't feel that weird or that sinister because like we know that he does weird Zen shit all the time. He does this thing called relaxing. I don't know anything about that. It's not something that I do. But I've heard of it and it's something that he likes. And I like that for him. So, you know, it's just like that obviously didn't stick for B. My God, imagine killing someone with a dumbbell or whatever that's called. Yeah. What kind of weight is that?
Kettlebell?
The thing is, like, that.
Wait, you're not going to acknowledge that I know the name of that weight?
Great job, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Great job for knowing what a kettlebell is.
Thank you.
Really
you didn't say it. I was the one who said it. So yeah, I guess I know what a kettlebell is.
Yeah, you do, and I'm really impressed with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
But they like never explained to him what was going on at all. They never said anything about what was going on. It's so frustrating. Like he thinks already that they're fucking with him all the time because they have been fucking with him all the time because he's older and he doesn't know any of them and they're all assholes.
That was the thing that I didn't get though, is like the fucking with him thing was like the best defense is a good offense. And he was saying like, oh, you guys are fucking with me. Or was that a different part? Because I felt like Pete Davidson was just being stupid in that scene.
No, he was fucking with him. He just was like asking him about it over and over and over again, just to like get him to say something dumb.
I felt like Lee Pace, and I know this was, I guess, not the takeaway of the movie because the characters right after that were like, are you fucking with me? I feel like Lee Pace was the one fucking with them by just repeating himself constantly instead of...
No, they were fucking with him. 100%.
Well, that's dumb. I disagree with that script choice.
They were just, it was Pete again, like with his insecurities. He was just like, I'm going to find a way to fucking humiliate Lee Pace right now because he's hot. I just punched him. He's 1 inch taller than me. And so here's what I'm going to do. Something literally so stupid. It's not even smart. It's not a smart burn or anything like that. Everybody knows that what the best defense is a good offense means. Like it's pretty self fucking explanatory. But that's why it was fucking with him, to make him like put it into words, you know? So it just, yeah, I felt bad. I wanted more Lee Pace in the movie. And so when he died, I was so sad. But it was pretty epic that it was B. Also, the whole first part of the movie, I had no idea that B was foreign at all. I had no idea. I totally missed the accent 100%.
Really?
1000%. Yeah, until they got to the house, I didn't notice it.
Yeah, I didn't notice it until they got to the house either. And then I was like, what's going. Like, I also was like, wait, suddenly out of nowhere.
Maybe she just didn't talk a lot in the beginning. I don't
It
know.
was literally just Amandla being like, I love you. Don't say anything back. You don't have to reciprocate. She did say some stuff in the car, but not that much, I guess. Just like,
Yeah.
oh, it's my mom. Because her mom is blowing up her phone.
Mhm. Oh man.
Wait, I want to talk about B a little bit more, actually.
Sure.
Because I thought it was really interesting that the movie seemed to like slip into her perspective at numerous times throughout in a way that I felt like it really wasn't doing for any of the other characters. And I don't know if that's just because it was like she's one of the characters we come in with, and spoiler alert, she's one of the only characters left at the end, and she's kind of like the unknown, and that
I
she's
think
the
she's like the
outsider, so the audience
outsider. Yeah.
proxy.
I think that's what it is because she's an outsider. She doesn't know any of these people. And so she doesn't understand their social dynamics. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's like a good entry point.
Yeah, and she was like new to the bodies game, and so when it was like really in her perspective as she was like crawling away, but I couldn't tell if the movie was trying to like make me suspicious of her by doing that, or if I was trying, if it wanted me to be like sympathetic with her by doing that, or if it maybe it wasn't trying to like tonally do one or the other at all.
At the beginning, it was 100% trying to make you suspicious of her because she was like going back to the car. And at first, you're like, did she leave that light open on purpose?
Mm.
Because, like, how could you be that dumb? And she like went back by herself. And then, yeah, it's stupid. I'm sorry.
So
You
look,
shouldn't
she
do
needed
that.
to practice her smile in the mirror.
I
She's
understand
ready
that,
for
but you
that
always
scary
gotta
movie
close the
smile.
fucking thing. Um, but I think it's supposed to like put the possible shade on her at the beginning, but they do a good job with doing that with her and Sophie at the very beginning as well. But then like pretty much immediately you know that it's not her because it's in her perspective when David dies, and you know that she didn't do it because you've seen everything that she did up until that point. She's wandering around the downstairs trying to fucking take a piss. And then she sees him crash into the window. So you know it can't be her. So then after that, you're kind of like, um, I don't know. For me, I was like, well, it can't be her now because I know she didn't commit that first murder. And then you know that she kills Lee Pace. You know she kills Greg.
Mm-hmm.
But you're like, that was because she was defending Sophie and defending the other gals because she was trying to make sure that they were okay. Because in that moment, he was being scary, but he was being scary because they were all coming at him with a
Yeah.
million knives and he
Yeah.
had just been asleep.
Literally
And
so many.
if I had just been asleep and then I was suddenly surrounded by 5 hot girls with knives, I too would be on the defensive.
Yeah, I think it was I don't know that I ever like at any point was like B did one of these killings or deaths. But I was prepared to not rule her out because it felt very like Clue vibes to me, and I saw some articles talk about like Clue references as well, especially in the sense that like everyone has a motive for somebody, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to necessarily be like one killer doing blah 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 so much as like now that there's chaos in the house, it's really easy to take advantage, and if you have a grudge, you know, now you can enact it, and so I was
True,
like,
because like all bets are off.
right. And I thought Jordan was a little suspicious because in that like very first confrontation with, well, I thought she wanted to kiss B at first, frankly. And she kept getting
Oh
really in
yeah.
B's space. And then they were like dancing. And Sophie was like, why are they suddenly dancing together like this?
Keep your
Well,
friends
it's
close
because
and your
Jordan was
enemies closer.
well, Jordan
Keep
was
your
just trying to
exes close and
make
your ex's new girlfriend closer. It's very
Exactly.
Fletcher.
yeah,
Very Fletcher.
she was trying to make Sophie jealous and put Sophie on guard, being like, "Oh, I can get with your new girl. Like you're not with me, but I can get with your new girl." That's what it felt like to me. I was like, their history is very plain.
I did like when B and Greg sort of had like a newbie alliance at first and like an outsider alliance and that initial
Yes.
dancing. Wait, that's so fucked up that she was eating so much cake before they were like, there's weed in that cake.
so
She
fucked up.
eats
But
so
luckily
much.
she didn't get so high. Thank God.
Maybe
Thank
she
God.
did.
She looked like
managed
she was
though.
okay. She looked like she was all right.
Well, she did after she murdered somebody, manslaughtered somebody, whatever you want to call it. When she went to change, because they're like, go change your shirt. She put on makeup. But I also think, she just murdered somebody. So I think she's probably just in
Right.
shock as well.
You never know. Like, you can't judge people based on like how they react to like traumatic things. Cause like
Yeah.
people could just act like, instead of getting in the shower, she washed herself off in the sink. Like, baby,
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole shower.
Yeah, no, she was having like a trauma response and she was like, I just want to feel like normal. So she put on that perfume, she put on like the sweater and all that stuff. So like that just felt like her just trying to find some sort of like normal thing to do to forget about what she'd just done.
Which
So
sucked because then they were making like weird gold diggery vibes, as though she was like trying to steal a Ralph Lauren polo sweater. Like she went into somebody's closet, God forbid. Like they told her to change her shirt. Like, what did you think that she was gonna do? I guess she had stuff for the weekend, but
she did bring her own bag, but she wasn't thinking clearly. I mean, there's so many like class not warfare, but that's the
Jordan,
words that are
your
coming to
parents are
mind.
upper middle class.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Dude,
No, they're
that
not. You
shit
take
was
that back.
So funny. Also,
They're
I thought it was
teachers.
so funny when like I don't know what exact point it was when someone was like pointing out how Sophie's parents were the richest of all of them. And she's like, that's never mattered to me. And I'm like, bitch, it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter to you.
To you, of course, it does not matter to you.
Of course, it doesn't matter to you. Like, we're not talking about what it feels like for you. It's like how the rest of the crew feels. But yeah, it was fucking brutal. And man, I mean, I think we should get into more of the deaths as they come. Because we've talked about Lee Pace, we've talked about David, but now we got to talk about Emma. I feel really bad for Emma's character because like Pete Davidson is a fucking shitty ass boyfriend. And he's so fucking mean to her when he's like, you've never said one original thing in your entire fucking life. I was like, someone kill him, and then he dies. So that's good. But like, wow, so fucked up. And then everyone is just still so ruthless to her. They never trust her emotions. They never trust that she's being genuine because she's an actress. And it's just like, actresses can have feelings too.
I've heard that about them. Yeah.
I've heard that. I've known a few of them and they've all had human emotions. Shocking.
Yeah, I did think the gaslighting discourse in that moment was interesting because like I mean, it's not quite gaslighting necessarily to just invalidate somebody's emotions. Gaslighting is like a specific thing. But clearly he sucks and is terrible and probably does gaslight her. But it was that because I was just like the bodies discourse. Even they weren't even into the murder part of it yet. They were still just like playing their game and being like, she always is getting her feelings hurt in this game, and she always cries, and then like she starts crying immediately. And she's just an actress. Like, look at her trembling upper lip, like that's fake. Blah blah blah. And then they go back and forth on that a million times in the movie of being like, you can't listen to her. She's an actress. She could be lying. And then also, she's a bad actress. So she can't be lying that much.
So fucking mean.
They're all so terrible.
But like, I don't know. I started getting suspicious of how everything was going down when Emma died because she was so obviously fucked up when she tried to like make out with Sophie. Like when she pulls away, she's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like she literally seems like so fucked up. And then Sophie gives her more drugs. What was that, by the way, that she gave her?
Well, she took a Xanax. She was already on like so many drugs. She just saw her boyfriend
coke and whatever
be dead.
Yeah. She saw her boyfriend be dead. That's a drug in and of itself, a bad one.
Exactly. That's a bad trip right there.
And then whatever like Sophie like found in that eyeball ping pong ball that she had obviously stashed many moons ago. Who knows what the fuck that was. But yeah, I mean, and you can also you hear her fall, you hear Emma fall down the stairs when it's like in Alice's perspective and she's stumbling around in the dark and you can hear her tumble down and then Alice falls on her. And also, what a horrible way to discover one of your best friends is dead by literally slipping in her blood and smacking, body slamming her dead body. What a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as somebody who recently watched The Staircase, it was an interesting death for sure, where they were trying to be like, could she have fallen? Could she have slipped? Look how much blood this is. Obviously, it's one thing or another. And I'm not going to weigh in on The Staircase because I don't have firm thoughts or theories. But I thought it like they set up it enough, and there's been enough discourse about like that true crime story specifically, that I think a lot of horror fans would probably like have some recall surrounding that. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't convinced it was murder either. Like, obviously, she was fucked up. I didn't really feel like anybody had reason to kill her specifically, as opposed to like, I would buy that somebody would kill David. You know what I mean? And also it was like so shocking, and we saw him dying and we saw him like pounding against the window, that you're like very inclined to be like, okay, yes, big scary vibes, as opposed to like any other explanation. You know what I mean? But yeah, things really shit hits the fan after the whole Emma of it all. I liked her with the kiss with Sophie though. Like, I thought it made so much sense for her character with all of the like the Max thing, where Max is maybe this like specter, this threat like in the background where he keeps getting mentioned but is never on screen at that point. And it's like he punched him the day before. Yeah.
A really smart thing to have. Like, you have this specter where like even if it seems like these deaths are like, we know that Greg is killed by B. We know that that one was not the murderer or whatever, but the rest of them, like, they're thrown into only, honestly, only Emma is the only other one where you're like, could this have been a murderer? But like, you have that specter of Max, so it keeps you believing that this could really be a whodunit. It really could be a murderer killing them all or causing this like chain reaction. And then, but we'll get to that. So I thought that was like a brilliant play to have this like this character, this unknown, that's talked about so much. And I also love that they all did shrooms the day before and like confess their love. Like, I just thought that was so fucking funny. That would happen. It's true to life. Okay. It's true to fucking life.
And they were like, it was beautiful.
For me, I loved this movie so much and I had like so much fun. I wasn't sure like what to expect with it because the trailer was so beautiful for me. I was like, how can it live up? And I think that it did get a little slow in the very, very middle because the beginning was so funny, like joke, like action in that way, not necessarily like deaths or whatever. And I think that it started to slow down in the middle. But the next part that we're just about to get to with when it's just B and Sophie and Jordan and Alice left is like the crux of the movie for me. I was like, if I could have rolled on the floor, I would have been rolling on the floor because this is when all of the podcast discourse really starts to go down. And there's been a few times that I've watched the movie or watched something like when I watched Inside by Bo Burnham, I felt like I had been shot in the face personally by Bo Burnham and he wrote it just to hurt me. And then when I watched Bodies and watched this part of this movie, I was like, they have come for Spooky Tuesday. The podcast discourse had me dying so much. By the way, I love the podcast. So fucking funny.
Who do we think hate listens to our podcast? Which one of our friends
No.
hate listens to our podcast?
Look, I'm staying with my friends right now. And when I showed up here, my friend was like, I've been listening to your podcast today and it feels like we've been hanging out. So I think all of our friends listen to it with love.
Wow, that sounds like a hater.
How dare you?
I think that a lot of our friends love it and listen to it with love. And I think that there are people in my life that surely don't like me that much and definitely are like, listen to part of it. And we're like, that's stupid as fuck.
Here's the thing, baby. Keep listening because that just ups our numbers. Hey, listen to us.
A download's
all
a
you
download,
want.
But like, what a reveal. If I was in a high intensity situation and it turned out that one of my close friends actually hated my podcast and been talking shit about Spooky Tuesday to everyone, I too would go for their jugular. So I can't blame Alice.
Would you
for
shoot them though?
forgetting. No, Jordan's the one who shoots Alice because this is what happens. Like Sophie reveals that Jordan fucking
She climbs
hates
through the doggy
Alice.
door. B climbs through the doggy door to be like, she's got a gun.
Yeah, and Sophie's the one who finally reveals that that Jordan hates Alice and hates everything that she does and hates her podcast and listens to her podcast and talks shit about her literally constantly. And then like Jordan is like backed into a corner, takes out the gun, and Alice is like, or that's not necessarily chronological, but you feel
It's
me.
close enough. Yeah.
Alice is like, Jordan has a gun pointed at me, but you have come at my livelihood and I don't fucking care. I will come at you right now. And I was like, yeah, okay. Because you don't think Jordan's going to shoot her, you know? You're like, even if you hate listen to my podcast, you're not going to shoot me in the leg. But yeah, she like Alice does say some like really fucked shit to Jordan.
Yeah, like calling her middle
being-
class. Embarrassing.
How dare she?
Well, that was like the opposite of that because like it seems like Jordan was trying to was painting this picture that she's struggled so hard, and like what Alice was trying to do was be like, your family's actually doing okay, and so it's not that hard for you, which is a extra brutal fucking way to put it. Your parents work are professors at a university.
It's just like public.
Yeah.
Very Grimes of her, TBH.
Lord God.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that is like a conversation the movie was trying to have and like sort of gets into on several different occasions about privilege and like who's the most marginalized and who's not. And like Sophie has that whole moment where she's saying like, oh, it's a problem when the Black girl is doing cocaine, but it's not a problem when the white guy is doing cocaine. And it's like, yes, but also some people are cocaine addicts and some people do cocaine.
Exactly. Like everyone's trying to use these like structural not stereotypes, but like the you know, just being like, oh, if the white person does it, then it's not as bad. But then like immediately after, Jordan's like, I was in the ambulance with you like 4 times when you had to go to the hospital. And I'm like, that's why you had to go to rehab, baby. It's because you were doing the most amount of coke. That's the difference. Like there is a recreational usage threshold and then there's beyond that, you know? But I thought that was like it just was interesting to see everyone's defense mechanisms. Like it's a beautiful social commentary on what you do when you're under the gun, fucking literally.
You be mean to everybody.
Sure. It happens.
It happens. But yeah, I just like, if you hate listen to the podcast, keep doing it. But yeah, that moment, the second that the gun came out, I was like, there's gonna be some stupid struggle and someone's gonna get accidentally shot, and then boom bang, bye bye Alice. We loved her. stupid bitch. We loved her.
She's known Greg for so long. 2 whole weeks.
2 whole weeks. She's like, you don't ask for their middle name for like a long time. And that's true.
Here's the thing. I've been seeing this guy since May. I don't know if he knows my last name.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. That's none of my business if he knows my last name.
You're right. I agree.
Maybe I don't want him to know my last
Maybe it's a secret, actually.
Yeah.
It's a secret. It's a secret. That's a secret I'll never tell. XOXO. But yeah, I mean, I think that was like the high point of the movie. The rest of it is really, really great, but it's really interesting to see them like come to terms with how much they've fucked up, because after Alice dies, like they're like, wow, we're fucking freaking out and we're killing people at this point, because like Greg is dead because of us, Alice is dead because of us. Emma's an outlier. But like that whole thing where like Jordan still picks up the gun and is still trying to defend herself, because now she knows that like whatever she's done, she's brought the gun into play and now someone's dead because of that. And I thought that was really, really interesting. But like B really is racking up her own body count. Like I don't know what's going on with her, but like she's ready to defend. She's so ready to defend Sophie and so ready to defend them. But like she still doesn't trust her at the end of the day, because like and she shouldn't, because like it's very clear by the end of this film that Sophie definitely did cheat with Jordan. She definitely did. Otherwise she wouldn't throw her fucking phone into a pool. You know what I mean?
Right. People that don't cheat let you go through their phone.
Yeah, exactly. And like, also, girl, delete that shit if you're ever think you're gonna get caught. My God, this is amateur hour. Stupid.
Right. You should know, Gen Z, you should know better. You've been chronically online since the day you were born. Like,
You should be
come
using
on.
Snapchat. Aren't the kids still using Snapchat?
But yeah, I hope that are they using Snapchat? They are, right?
They
Sydney,
are.
You recently went onto Snapchat. What happened?
A bunch of people that I used to have sex with immediately tried to add me and I cried.
Terrifying. Delete,
Oh,
delete.
yeah.
It was honestly horrifying.
Disconnect. Like delete account.
Delete,
No.
delete, abort.
No.
Mhm.
No. Oh man, but I've just like really liked the way that everyone like, or not everyone, but B and Sophie try to manipulate each other in the very last bit of this film, because like I think B made the right choice trying to get him away from Sophie. Not that I thought that Sophie did it, but like, you know, or killed anyone, but I wouldn't want to be around someone if I suspected them of betraying my trust and then maybe like really manipulating me this whole time, because Sophie's been so effusive with her like love and professions of love throughout the whole experience. But then anytime that B was like under fire, Sophie never defended her
Yeah.
at
Threw her
all.
out into the hurricane.
She left her to die. Not left her to die, but yeah, kind of left her to die at any turn. So she's like, I love you. I love you. But like she cheated on her. And then when everyone suspected her, she didn't do anything to defend her, you know?
Yeah.
So not a good girlfriend. But I think that B is really, really smart, because she like when she's caught by Sophie at the very end, she like plays along to do what she needs to do. So that's a smart gal move. And I also love the movie like starts in the pool and ends in the pool. I thought that was really cool too. And I loved also, this is like a little small note, but at the very beginning, they're having that like hold your breath contest in the pool, and Lee Pace wins. Greg wins. He's like, "See, I told you I have the biggest lungs." And there's that part when he dies first in Bodies, 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 and he's just like laying there and everyone
Mhm.
thinks he's actually dead, which is such a good fake out. I thought it was brilliant. But like everyone really thinks he's dead and they're like so convinced. And then they're like, oh, it's because he's got that really big lung capacity. So he doesn't have to breathe for so long. I just love a
The
little through line that makes a
yeah.
lot of sense.
The pool thing with the breathing contest, I also really liked because it's like really establishes group dynamics to a degree. Where we know that Sophie has been ignoring the group chat and then showed up regardless, and they're like, "You didn't say you were coming, me," and they having this back and forth as people are like looking from the bottom of the pool and then coming to the surface to confront. And Lee Pace wins not only because he has the biggest lungs, but also because he is completely out of touch with what is going on with the group as everyone is surfacing to like have this confrontation to a degree. And he's just totally left behind, left out.
But then he like really seals the deal of how the like social dynamics of the group are going to work, because finally he gets introduced to Sophie. She's like, I'm Sophie. And he was like, oh. And then he was like, oh, you're Sophie. And you're like, oh, fuck. So Alice has been talking shit about Sophie for sure. Like they've only been together 2 weeks, but Lee Pace knows who the fuck Sophie is. Like that's very informative.
Look, if you're bringing your new boyfriend to the group going away event, you are absolutely giving the rundown on everybody's drama ahead of time.
And there's nothing more fun than filling in like a new partner about like your friendship dynamics in a group. Like there's nothing better than that experience. And here's the thing about Greg in this movie is he did seem very invested, where he was like, oh, you're Sophie. Like, I know about you. Like, he seems like he would be like, yep, I know. Like, invested in the drama.
He'd eat that shit up.
He's a good boy. He's a good boy. He didn't deserve to die. He loves animals.
He is a very adult man dating a young lady. So that's never great. But he is Lee Pace, so he gets a pass.
Lee Pace can do no wrong.
Yeah. Also, update on Lee Pace Gay Watch. He doesn't label his sexuality other than I've seen things that says just gay. So I don't know if bisexual is the right term, but regardless, we love a queer Lee Pace. Yeah. Did I label him again by calling him queer? Anyway, you do you, Lee Pace. I support you implicitly.
This is actually a perfect time for Adam to have walked in the room, because this final moment of the movie is something that was so special to me. Because like the whole reveal of this, the very end of this movie was so fucking funny. Like we talked about already, they're having this struggle. They're trying to get to Sophie's phone to find out if she actually cheated, what happened, and they finally get to the phone, and it's not Sophie's phone, it's David's phone. And I love when they like open David's fucking eyes. And also the stance that he's in when he dies is fucking hilarious. He has like his hands on his hip bones and it looks very silly and it made me laugh. Anyway, that's just a little side thing for me. But the fact that they like get into his phone, we've had this whole fucking movie with all this fucking drama, and the whole thing is just because of a TikTok. It's so, in my mind, it was brilliant.
Classic
It was
Gen
beautiful.
Z.
It was so fucking funny. Like just him trying to be as cool as Greg. Like literally the whole reason all of these people died is because he couldn't handle that Greg was cooler than him. I'm like, David, you're like 23 or 4 or 5, whatever his age is supposed to be in this movie. Greg has many years on you. You have many years to learn how to do the machete, open the champagne thing. It doesn't have to be tonight during the hurricane. It's okay, baby. But
here's the thing,
alas,
I don't know. That seems like something a coked out man would absolutely do while coked out. I'm just, like
that's
that.
True.
Yeah.
That's very true.
That scans for me.
My only complaint about that is it felt a little like the choreography of it all felt a little why would you be like, this isn't her phone? Oh, I know. It must be David's phone. We should open it. We need this. Like that felt a
You
little like
open the phone and it was a picture of him and Emma on the background.
right, but why did she need to be like, oh, let's open his phone? You know what I mean? Other than we need that reveal.
It doesn't bother me that much. I don't know.
It doesn't
I
bother
see what you
me.
mean, but
Yeah,
it doesn't
it
bother me that
just
much.
I feel like there could have been a slightly better way to do that, maybe. But I'm not sure. Like if it showed, you know how sometimes when you are like have music on your phone or whatever, and then it locks, and then you look at the lock screen, it shows that like something was playing or whatever. I think if it had showed somehow like, oh, this app, sometimes I'm playing like little games on my phone and I need extra points or whatever, so you watch the ad, but then you're like bored, and then your phone is like playing music from this random
Bored in the
website,
house,
and you're like,
I'm in
what's
the
that?
house, bored,
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
think
bored in
there
the
could
house,
have
and I'm in the
been
house, bored.
like the connection to that somehow, but it was
Well,
fine.
I think
It was
also
fine.
there's the natural want to know what the person was up to, like right before they died, because they know that he died, and like
Sure,
so
and then like,
I
oh, if
didn't feel like
his phone was
that
out
much
here.
of a jump to me.
Okay.
But like that whole TikTok was so fucking funny. The fact that it's to that song, I know it's a little dated now because that's like a very 2020 TikTok sound, but it was so fucking perfect. And also, Adam has now left, and so he doesn't get to comment. But the
Oh,
reason I was so excited about the very end, and the reason that the ending stuck extra for me, is that I fucking love the actor who plays Max, who shows up at the very end. That's Connor O'Malley. He's married to Adie Bryant. He is an absolutely hilarious comedian. And in the description, I will link his very, very funny video that I'm obsessed with, where it's called like Bird Fest 2020, and it's just like literally it's unhinged shit. It's fucking nuts shit. And he's just like a very out comedian, and I wish somehow we could have had more of him in this movie, but the fact that it was him was just like the cherry on top for me. I was so happy. And Adam, I saw it and I was like, I'm seeing it again, because this is like Adam's like number one comedian. I was like, I'm seeing it again with Adam, because just this punchline at the very end is going to send him. And did it? Yes, sir. Yes, it did. He was ecstatic. He couldn't believe it. He was hysterical in the theater. So it was a beautiful ending for me.
Okay, but is he supposed to be playing like an early 20s something? Because he also looks hella old.
Well, yeah, he's like 35. So I don't know why they cast him, except for the fact that he's hella funny. So like I don't even his line wasn't even funny. I wish he had been like, what the fuck is this? Or something, even like that. He was like, what is happening? I don't understand why. I don't understand the choice, but I respect the choice, is the thing. I was just happy to see him.
I'm okay with him being way older. Pete Davidson was like, he's not that much older than Amandla and the rest of them. He's only like maybe 4 years older than Amandla. He's that old.
He
He's
doesn't
younger than all
look
of
that
us.
old either, is the thing.
Yeah.
And it's like it's Hollywood. We know how this
Yeah.
works.
But like he and Amandla's character Sophie are very clearly supposed to have like gone to school together since preschool. I don't know that we really know how Max fits in. So he could also just be like a weird older guy, kind of like Greg is. That feels not on brand for this friend group.
No, I totally agree. Well, okay, I guess that brings us to our first segment, which is how could this movie be gayer? And luckily, we don't have to do a goddamn thing.
It was pretty gay.
Yes.
Well, okay,
Oh.
we talked about it already. They
Pete
should have
Davidson
kissed.
and Lee Pace should have kissed. I want to talk about it again because it was the perfect
Kiss,
moment.
kiss.
Greg
It
could
was
have,
a
I don't think they
great
should have kissed
moment.
on the mouth. I think Greg could have kissed him on the forehead, and that would have established
Oh.
dominance and been
Oh.
tender.
That would have
And
been
what I mean.
spicy.
brutal.
I did appreciate though, it opens with a very long gay kiss. Obviously that's Sophie and B, but we know that Jordan and Sophie also have a history. Emma and Sophie kiss. Like there's a lot of like queerness going on in general. I'm inclined to believe that none of the girlies are straight. I'm inclined to believe that not all of the girlies are strictly speaking girlies. And that some of them could be non-binary. Sophie in particular feels to me. I don't know if that's just Amandla or also the style. B's style was also a little not that androgyny necessarily means anything, but I could see that for B, and I feel like B could be one of those like gender neutral names. I think there's a lot of space to read queerness into this film already without changing a single thing, and I also think that they could have, a little kiss on the forehead would have been great.
Well, the next thing to ask is, where would Matthew Lillard fit into this film? I would never replace Lee.
No, and he wouldn't do as good a job
think there's
in that role. I don't think.
There's no other spot for him to go into.
A young
unless
him
we were doing time travel and he'd be Pete Davidson.
He would fucking rule as Pete Davidson. He would be an icon. He'd be a shining star in that role. That's it. He could have been Max. He could just pop up for 2 seconds at the end and be like, "Hi, I'm Matthew Lillard."
That's true, but it would have been even more jarring.
No, but here's the thing. It would have been really funny instead of a character named Max if it was just Matthew. And they're like, yeah, Matthew punched me. Matthew, and then it's just Matthew Lillard.
It's playing himself. Look, these are rich kids. They might know Matthew Lillard.
Be so fucking funny.
That would have, like, I would have been like, I like this movie now.
You would have changed your mind instantly.
Sydney, I just saw the meme that you texted us that says, they don't know how hard it is to have a podcast. You have to have a Google calendar and schedule guests and build a following. And it's so true. Our Google calendar is very complex.
It's maybe the most important meme I have sent the group
Straight
chat
up,
while recording
I was
ever.
Screaming in the bathroom with Claire and Abby after the movie on Friday, and they were like, "Okay," and I was like, "Okay, but I have been shot in the face, and you don't understand because you're like." Your podcasts haven't gone live yet. Okay, once you're there, you'll know and you'll feel as struck. Oh God, it was brutal. But it was so funny and it was deserved. There's so many movies these days that come at us podcasters just trying to live our lives.
We deserve it, though.
Speak our truth.
We deserve it.
But we really deserve it. We really but it's hard to hear nonetheless.
Okay, anyway.
Okay. Dumb bitch.
Dumb bitch.
Dumb bitch of this movie. I mean, like, who isn't?
I feel like it's got to be David, though. He kicks off the whole thing. He's the toxic masculinity.
It's David. You're right.
It should be basic knowledge not to cut towards yourself, especially with your giant family sword. You know what I mean? That was. And also, you guys already made your board in the house board TikTok when they did the little dance in the beginning. Pick a different song. You can't use the same sound for everything.
You're hitting all the points here, Chelsea. I mean, there's nothing else to say. It's David. He's a fucking fool.
Especially a sound that's not even currently trending. Like, nobody's gonna see it.
I loved that they used that song though. I thought it was great because it took back to such like a quarantine moment, which works when they're not quarantining per se. Yeah, but they're doing the whole hurricane party, can't go anywhere. We're all here together. So it was very much vibes. My personal cultural touch point for that was like in the early days of the pandemic when Hannah B from The Bachelorette was quarantining at Tyler C's house in Florida, and they had their little quarantine crew, and they were doing the board in the house board,
right?
Yes, before Matt was the Bachelor.
Yeah, I remember that. That's how I knew of Matt.
Yes, and that was like a pandemic TikTok sound like moment to me, and the trends come back around sometimes. So I thought it worked well, even though it felt a little dated. It felt appropriate that they would be like,
it was
here's
perfect.
why. Yeah, it worked.
It hasn't been so long, and there hasn't been a movie that I've seen that's commented on TikTok in that way, and so I thought it was, because that was like the big one, you know, during that
Yeah.
time.
It's
There are
interesting
many,
though.
but that was one of the most iconic.
Mhm. It's interesting though, because I haven't watched that movie with Zoe Dutch and Dylan O'Brien, Not Okay, I think it's called. But I've
No, I
seen
haven't
kind of
watched
the
that.
same cultural conversation around that movie as around this movie, which is that it's really hard to do a Gen Z movie, especially a Gen Z movie that's trying to be really current, because the memes and the trends come and go so
They
fast.
changed
So if
so
you're trying
fast.
to engage, like you're already behind by the time your project is going to come out, because it just takes a long time to make a movie.
Right. And things are so like it gets so dated so
Yes.
fast.
Even on this podcast, we make all kinds of cultural little jokes about whatever the current trend is. And then by the time people are listening a week and a half later, it's like, that might be super old
It's
now.
over, honey.
That joke is dead. Yeah.
That joke is dead. Okay, well, I guess that brings us to our knives out of fives. So, what are people feeling
Maybe,
about this movie? I know it's early days.
yeah. On IMDb, it has a 6.6 out of 10. And on Rotten Tomatoes, it has 90% fresh from critics, which is super high, and 76%
Yeah.
fresh from audiences. And I feel like Sydney should give her knives first to get it out of the way.
I'm gonna give this a 2.5 out of 5.
Okay, I respect your opinion.
Only
Okay.
saving grace is Lee Pace
Mhm.
and the podcast Discord and Alice, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Like
She's amazing.
all of her lines, just her. Know what I mean? Like, Rachel, you're a star. I love you. And Lee Pace. And I love that they were a couple. Know what I mean? Like, they knew who the strong points were of this movie.
I loved it. To counterpoint, here's the thing with me and Sydney. We come together few times, but when we do, it's beautiful. But most times it's opposite. And that's why we are very close
So
friends.
important to have different perspectives.
Opposites attract, you know?
Mhm.
I love this movie. I also I seen it twice now because I saw it Friday and I saw it today. And it still slapped for me both times. I think also part of that was me staring at Adam watching it, being like, laugh, laugh, laugh. But I don't know. I thought the jokes still held up, not like knowing what was happening. I was like anticipating it because I thought the payoffs were so funny. And so I was excited to see them again instead of being like, well, I already know what's going to happen. I maybe liked it better the second time because I could anticipate how funny it was going to be in the parts that were a little dull for me, because I think it did get a little bit slow in the middle just because it was so fast, so fast paced, so funny, so cutting in the very beginning, that when it got to that point where they're roaming around the house in the pitch black darkness, it was kind of just like, okay, we're out of that, you know? So I'm not going to say that it's a perfect movie. I'm not going to say that it's the best movie I've seen this year, because we've had such a fucking great year for horror that this is low on the list comparatively. Because, we've just had so many great things come out. But I had a really, 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 really good time with this. It was just pure fun. My favorite type of horror is horror comedy, and this hits the nail on the head for me. And so yeah, I'm giving it a 4.5.
Nice. My friends were asking me when we left the theater, like, okay, so what are your knives? And I was saying, I think probably at least a 4, but I don't like to decide until I'm in the moment. Because sometimes our conversations really change my mind, like Autopsy of Jane Doe. So this didn't seem like it was going to be that kind of movie necessarily. I felt like it was all pretty straightforward. There wasn't necessarily that much to dive into in a meaningful way necessarily. But I thought it was a lot of fun. I was laughing a lot. I thought it was interesting that it seemed like kind of everything in the trailer came from like the first 20-25 minutes, which left a lot
which I
of
appreciated. Yeah, no spoilers.
it left a lot of funny stuff, and it left a lot of suspense and mystery still, where you weren't really sure which way things were going to go. I think the trailer is frankly a work of art, and a little better than the movie itself.
Yes.
Because it can afford to be like so fast paced in that way, like joke after joke after joke, really slammed back together, and coordinated in a way where they're like kind of in conversation. The movie itself, I think it is, again, trailer's a work of art. I think it set the bar really high. And so I think for me, while the jokes were great and they were spread throughout, it did feel like a little slow comparatively. I thought there was a lot of room for more jokes and humor that they didn't fully explore. And I think they could have explored a little more like the realities of being stuck in the house during the hurricane, not trusting each other, but still existing in the same space. Like, okay, this is dumb. You don't really like want to see people go to the bathroom in the movies. And it's one of those things where it's like, it just doesn't happen because it's not plot relevant. You know what I mean? But I feel like there would have been a lot of room for humor to do something with that in this movie, where they don't trust each other. They don't want to take their eyes off each other. They're all huddled together, but somebody's got to pee. I think they could have like capitalized on some of that a little more for character moments. But I really enjoyed it. I'd be curious to watch it a second time and see if it hits the same way a second time. But I definitely had fun. I would give it like a 4.2 knives out of 5s, I think.
Beautiful. I love it. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it was just a fun time. It's not a deep time,
Yeah.
but it's a fun time.
It's not that
And
scary,
it's
but it
very
was
of
funny.
the moment. Oh, it's definitely not scary at all, but it was very funny. And I love to laugh. And I love
I would
to have
have
fun.
rather watched the Minions movie.
Yeah, I mean, you love Minions though, so that's also a
I would have
contributing
had a
factor.
great time.
You and that
at Minions
6-year-old.
movie.
I would rather die than go see the Minions
Yeah.
movie. So here you see the juxtaposition between me and Sydney.
Mhm.
My favorite thing about
The
my
Minions?
friendship with Monica, and I always forget it, so I never keep my phone on ringer, but every blue moon I'll keep it on ringer, and every once in a while Monica will call me, and every single time I forget that her specific ringtone when she calls me is the Minions singing ring 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 ring.
I hate you for
And
that.
I die
hate
laughing.
you for
And
that.
it's like a treat for me, you know? It's a treat.
And
for
then part
myself.
of my soul dies every time. Oh man. See, that's what keeps our relationship spicy, is that I literally can't understand or predict how you will ever react to any movie that we ever like that I ever like. I'm like, if I like it, there's a 90% chance that Sydney's gonna fucking hate it.
But at
I'm,
least I
like,
didn't
prepared.
give this movie a 3.5 rating. It's worse.
Yeah, it was worse. Yeah, it was great. It's okay. It's okay. I'm not offended. I understand. It's not for everyone. But anyway, what are we doing next week, Sydney? Why don't you talk about that?
Okay. We are hopping right back into Final Destination Summer, which Chelsea thought was
Maybe.
last week.
I thought it was just constantly. It's just running in my brain at all times, I think, maybe.
Every day
And
is
this
Final
is-
Destination Day.
This is the Final Destination that I don't remember. I get 4 and 5 confused, so I'm not fully
Same.
sure.
I don't think I've seen 4 ever, so
It's either
don't-
about a bridge or
That's 5.
about a racetrack.
Racetrack
And
is
I
4.
don't know. Okay, so this is the racetrack one.
Oh, I have seen this one, but I've also seen that fucking compilation of all the death videos, so I get very confused.
Very
Don't watch
confused.
that video, like, if you haven't seen them. Like, don't do it to yourself. I'm like, is this the mammogram one or the other one? Like, I don't
Mammogram?
know.
Which one is that?
That's got to be a 4 one.
It might be this one. There's
That
your name.
I
We'll
hate
see.
already.
Come back next week.
Unless
to
I made
figure
it up, in which case someone institutionalized me because what a horrible one to make up. Anyway, Final Destination
Imagine.
Summer, baby. Can you believe this is our penultimate Final Destination Summer?
Good use of penultimate.
Thank you. I love
What
to
does
use
that word mean?
Second to last.
Second to last.
Oh,
It's a fancy word for second to last. Aren't
I
you
was like-
glad it exists? I am.
I was like, that's a quarter word. They didn't teach us those big old
Mm.
fancy words in Georgia public school education that I went to for a while.
It's a
It's
fancy
just,
one. Yeah, for sure.
It's a way to sound fancy when you're talking about something that
That's-
is second to last.
Mhm.
It's a very niche word, and that's why I like it so much. Anyway, why don't you incorporate the word penultimate into a 5-star review for Spooky Tuesday on Apple Podcasts? We're actually so close to 100 reviews now. We're at like 92, I think. We're getting so close. So, like, close the fucking gap, you know? Like, don't you
It's
love
your
us?
responsibility. Do your part.
As a listener. We don't have a Patreon yet, so this is what you can do for us. Listen to what all we've done for you, which is be drunk and talk about bodies.
And other
but why not-
things, like Lee
We've done a
Pace
lot of-
being 6'5".
Yeah, we've talked about him
Important
being 6'5".
details.
He really okay. While we were watching the movie, I turned to Adam and I was like, "Lee Pace is 6'5" in his ear, and he was like, "Okay." And I was like,
They don't understand. Look,
Important,
on the set of
okay?
Miss
He
Pettigrew
needs to
Lives for a
know.
Day, Amy Adams literally got distracted from doing her acting job because Lee Pace was just chilling on set, observing, being very large. And the takeaway
And
from that
hot.
interview was he is a lot of boy. And that quote is very important to me.
I love Amy Adams.
I love Amy Adams. Miss Pettigrew Lives for a
Amy
Day,
Adams
great
is
movie.
Incredible.
Deserves an
incredible.
Oscar.
But like, why not also follow us on social media? It's a great opportunity. You could comment on our Instagram and say Lee Pace is 6'5", and we could talk about it. It would be so awesome. You could DM us about it. So follow us at Spooky_Tuesday on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. We're also Spooky Tuesday Pod on Facebook and Tumblr. The Tumblr girlies are going wild over our note posts, so like you could be a part of that discourse. And then also we are at Spooky Tuesday on Letterboxd, and we have that one singular YouTube video. So like and subscribe.
Bye, Spooky.
Boogies.
Bye.
Sweet Jesus.
First of all, a podcast takes a lot of work, okay? You have to organize the guests, you have to do a Google Calendar, and you build a following. It takes a long time, and I've been working on it for a while.
Spooky Tuesday was created by Monica Height, Sydney Thompson, and Chelsea Duff, and edited by Sydney Thompson. Our gorgeously spooky tunes are all thanks to Tamra Simons, who you can follow on Instagram at Captain Tamra, and our podcast art is by Mary Murphy, who you can find on Instagram at _the_moon_omg.